So is this working all right?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Rick. I really do. I thank you for letting me do this. What I'm doing is an article on how artificial intelligence will be used in law enforcement. And I know that for some time now you've been speaking on this issue. When did you start thinking about how artificial intelligence could be applied to law enforcement applications?
I would say probably about 5 years ago.
Okay.
As we got deeper in the body camera space, one of the sort of aha moments we had was that once you're making audio video recordings of every incident, it's really sort of duplicative to have these written reports that, you're trying to capture in writing, which you've already recorded in audio video. And I think the insight that we had there was that the challenge with audio video by itself can't replace a police report for business processes, because you need structured information, like to be able to search things for review, right? Like everybody who has to review a police report is not going to sit and watch the whole video. It's too unstructured. And one of the things that artificial intelligence is really getting pretty good at is extracting structured information from unstructured data. So in other words, like you could take a police, if I have a body camera and I record an incident, I could have a secretary who could write my report for me. Now, I would still have to, there are things that won't be in the video by itself, like what was my state of mind as an officer, but there's no device that records that. So the way we record that today is typically a police officer sitting at a keyboard typing. And frankly, for most cops, that's not the job they really signed up for. It's not a job skill that they love. They didn't get into police work to be writers. Guys like you got into being writing, right? So as we sort of started to deconstruct this about, okay, what would it take to make a police video a true substitute for a police report? The answer was you really need to be able to extract the information and put it into a text form so people can read it like a report. And so it can go through a business process like a written report. And that's where we see you could either do that manually. Many agencies historically have tried things where people can record their statements and someone will transcribe it later, or they can call it in on a telephone-based system and either talk to someone who does the report. I know Phoenix did that for a while, or they can record it. But since we're already recording it, and the thing about AI is that you can start to do things that previously required repetitive human labor, and we believe that I think, as you know, I'm on the advisory board of Singularity University out of the Bay Area, and the whole sort of thesis that they try to look at is how do you map these exponential technologies onto your strategic roadmap. And so as we started evaluating this, one of the things we started doing was really inquiring, okay, where are we at with AI? Like, when will the tools be good enough to not only transcribe the audio from a police video, but then to take that information and to then know how to segment it, right? Just having a running transcript isn't enough. You have to be able to go and pull, okay, this is the name of the witness, and this is the, address of the location. And then you combine that with things that might be in the video data, such as somebody hands you their driver's license. Well, today, many times police literally take out a pen and paper and they're writing down the information off the driver's license. Well, if we hold that up in front of a camera, we already see this in our personal lives. We all use business card scanning apps that are pretty good at scanning. And business cards, there's billions of them. There's everybody can do a little bit differently. With driver's licenses and IDs, there's only a finite set that we have to deal with. So sorry to ramble on this, but it was really just sort of looking at what's happening in other industries and how fast is the natural language processing coming along, how fast is the image processing coming along, and then the final piece is sort of the ability for software to evaluate which data goes where into the police database.
Okay. Well, Is there software out there now that can scan a video and break down into pieces what happened in that video?
Yeah, that's why we bought Dextro. So we acquired two companies early this year in 2017, and one of them was a company called Dextro, and they were based out of New York, and they were the first artificial intelligence team that was able to categorize actions and objects in video in real time. So they built software that could scan through a video segment and not only tell you, like, okay, this is a picture of a typewriter, it could also look at actions that occur across time, like a person typing, right? That's an action that isn't just happening in one frame. So when we start categorizing video, you've got to be able to look at still images. You've got to be able to take audio and transcribe it. And then you've also got to be able to look across frames and look at motion to determine what sorts of activities are happening. And that's what Dextro had really sort of been best in the world at. Now, that software is not yet commercially available. So they were, in pre-revenue, so they had built software for, competitions, et cetera, but it hadn't been publicly released. And we are now in the process of taking that core technology that they developed in R&D and now productizing it. And that'll be coming out in 2018. We'll have some pretty robust search functionality, where you'll be able to take video and search across it, both for an officer to do it manually and for a system to be able to go and flag videos or help categorize videos. So basically all the things that today, a lot of our customers, now that they are recording a lot of videos and body cameras are becoming pretty common, now there's a whole bunch of business processes that have popped up where police, administrators are sitting and watching tons and tons of video, whether it's for random sampling. It's typically for exactly that. They want to. They know that they're going to have to show that they have some sort of monitoring in place, and for feedback loops for officers to be able to to identify behaviors that could use retraining. But that's super, super manual today, and we think most of that can be really highly automated.
So that's going to be your first use of the Dextro technology.
Yeah, that'll be the first use of the Dextro technology. That'll actually be the second AI tool that goes to market. The first one is from the other team that we acquired, and that team was called Misfit. Little background. So Misfit was a company, they were a competitor to Fitbit. They were doing wearable fitness trackers and things. And Misfit had also, they were working on smart home technology. So their idea was they would sell wearables, and then you would have things like, are you familiar with the new Echo Show from Amazon?
Yeah. Well, I have an Echo. I haven't actually played with the Echo Show, but I do have an Echo.
By the way, I just bought one yesterday. It's insane. It's really pretty awesome. My CFO bought 3 of them. So basically, it's an Alexa or it's an Echo, but they added a screen on it. And so I just put 3 of them in my house last night. And it's pretty cool because you can say, from the kitchen, you can say, Alexa, drop into the library, and it'll open up in video conference. So my daughter frequently does her homework in there. So it's a really convenient hands-free way to be able to find people in the house. But anyway,
wow.
They were working on something very similar where they were going to do a Misfit home, like a camera system that would interact with your wearables, and it would help do home automation stuff. But Misfit got purchased by Fossil, the world's largest watch manufacturer. People don't necessarily know that Fossil's that big. They private label a bunch of brands from like Armani Exchange and Diesel and others where they make the watches. Anyway, when Misfit got acquired, big companies tend to focus down more. So they basically said, we're not going to get in the home automation business. We want to focus in only on the wearables. And so we were able to learn about this, and we bought their machine. They had a whole team of experts, PhD-level machine learning experts on vision processing. All right. So there's too much background probably there.
Yeah, that's okay.
The Misfit team, what we're doing with the Misfit team is we're doing redaction. So basically, their sort of what they'd really been working on was object recognition in video. So there's certainly overlaps with the Dextro team, but Dextro, we're doing more video search, and with Misfit, we're doing redaction. And so we've already done things like skin blur, where today, if you have to redact a video, right, an officer's got to go in, and it's a very, very manual process of putting boxes over faces and tattoos and all those things. So we've already rolled out the first element, which is a skin blur, so that if you've got a large scene like a crowd at a protest that you need to redact, you push one button, and our algorithms go through and they blur all the skin. Now, a number of people in this space have already introduced skin blur. I think the difference is doing it and doing it well. There's sort of a big difference between the calibration that goes into making this stuff reliable, and that's where I think this team really gives us a leg up. In that, I think we're really the only company in public safety that has a dedicated, artificial intelligence research group. Actually, two of them, but we now consider them one. So we've already launched Skin Blur, and then there will be a whole bunch starting the end of this year. We've revamped our entire redaction experience, and at IACP we'll be showcasing our new redaction studio, which is, like the name implies, it's a much more robust, it's a studio-like experience. If you've ever used Final Cut Pro or any of these more advanced video editing software, it's a much richer interface where we're adding these AI tools on top, and you'll be able to identify all sorts of objects, whether it's faces or documents or an MDT screen, and we will create all that in an automated way. And our system is being built where there's feedback loops. So as you go in and you apply the preset AI-driven features, and then you can go in the end and make corrections for the things that get wrong, we'll feed those corrections back into our algorithms so that they're self-improving and getting better and better over time. And our goal there is we think that within a couple of years, we will have automated redaction tools that are outperforming human operators and doing it with little to no labor. So redaction is first. Second comes this series of video search and review tools. So I talked about the ability to search through video to find things. The other thing we'll be doing is really speeding up the review process. So at ICT, we'll be showcasing some of our video review tools. And what that will be doing is basically we can identify when officers, if you've got a 2-hour-long video and an officer's sitting in the car, entering stuff in an MDT for 10 minutes, we can speed through that at very high speed or even skip it. So we can pre-process the video. So now when a supervisor sits down and says, I want to watch this video, we can give them the option to only watch the parts where there's interesting activity. Or if they feel like they need to watch everything to be sure, we'll speed through at 8 times real time. So, but the parts where there's nothing interesting happening, we'll blow through it really fast and then slow down to real time, like when the officer gets out of the car to do a vehicle approach, when the officer's interacting with the subject. And we believe that will cut the time spent reviewing by something like 70 or 80%.
Wow.
And then the third piece of our AI strategy is these first two are fairly easy by comparison. The third one, it's going to take a few years, is where we're coupling AI. It's the link between Evidence.com, where we're storing all the video, and our new Axon Records product. So we're building an RMS system, and the whole point of our RMS is to highly integrate all the digital evidence. So when you have a police report, you've got all your video, photos, documents, everything in one place. And that will be true in 2018 as we launch the product. We think it will already, because of that integration, have some real advantages. But when you layer AI as the link between video and the report, what will start happening over the next few years is that we will begin automating the creation of the report. First with simple things like scanning a driver's license, and so we'll just take that information, segment it, and that's pretty easy to populate right into the name, address, height, weight, all those things.
Sure.
So the report will start forming for you through our AI tools as you're doing the incident. So the officer, it won't be like we flip a switch and overnight, the AI is writing your entire report tomorrow. But what will happen is more and more of it will be automated in real time during the incident. With a 5-year goal, we think that we would be at basically the report would fundamentally be complete by the time you sit down to work on it, and you would just be editing at that point. So it could cut a ton of the time that goes to report writing.
Yeah, I can understand that. I would hate to have to fill out a report on everything I did all day long.
Yeah, and our customers do hate it. Cops, they sign up for this job where they want to go out doing police work, and it turns out their primary job is a data entry clerk, and then they have a part-time job as a cop.
And they often have to wait to get access to the machine they have to use to fill in the report. I'm actually, next week, I'm doing 5 deep dives at 5 different agencies this month, which I'm really looking forward to, because I haven't done this in a while, where I'll literally be starting at the 911 dispatch center and going through sort of what are all the systems in an agency and how do they fit together, and ending with a ride-along with officers out on the street. And our thesis, that we're pretty confident in, is what happens in most police agencies is you have a bunch of disconnected, disparate little systems that have popped up over time. And, the biggest challenge, I think, for law enforcement is the biggest challenge is all the time that gets sucked up in creating reports on it. But I think a close second is making these systems operate and link up to each other is just really hard, and it's really typically not done well. So you have lots of systems that are very clunky and don't particularly work well. And we see that as an opportunity. If we take the position that video and the digital evidence is the most pristine original content that you have in a police reporting system, and everything else is work product that comes off of it. So if we start from there, we're now digging into the back end to try to determine, how much of this can we automate, so you don't have agencies. Ultimately, police agencies should get out of the technology business. It's just not their. It's not their core competence. And in any enterprise today, the interconnectivity of the internet has allowed a degree of really incredible specialization. So, Google, for example, is phenomenal at search. And we can all access that seamlessly from our devices. So, no person or enterprise would think about trying to create like a global search and categorization tool for the world's information, because that's already available. And we see what's happening with this shift. In order to enable all of this, the shift that started into the cloud is sort of foundational, because all these things happen. Like if you are you a Facebook user by chance? I am, yeah.
So, one morning you woke up and there's this new live button in Facebook where you can live stream video. That happened for billions of people. Nobody had to think about it. I mean, Facebook's biggest problem was just educating people that it was there. The next thing you know, not only is it being used, it's now something that, like, when there's a police shooting, before people call 911, they're live streaming it on Facebook.
Oh, we had that experience in Charlotte. It's what caused our riots.
Yep. So, I mean, not all the effects of technology are easy or great, but they happen.
Yeah.
And in law enforcement, I think that the difference is agencies are used to this sort of outdated business model where they only get new features when somebody has, gone through the organizational effort to go buy it, staff it, install it, and maintain it, which means, things tend to move very slow and the level of innovation is really pretty slow. So I think we've seen that this move into the cloud allows a much faster pace of technological innovation. When you start using things like AI, right? Let me take one step back. I just think for readers, it might be foundational to give them background of, really what is artificial intelligence. And if it's for the way I think of it, computer software historically has been extremely prescriptive, right? Software some engineer has to sit somewhere and try and anticipate everything you as a user are going to want to do, and they've got to write this really, really long software program that says, if this, then that. Basically, that's all software is, I think. It's a bunch of if this, then that statements. But if you ever do anything the software didn't expect, or you hit some use case, that's when it locked up or it doesn't perform particularly well. Artificial intelligence, as I think about it, is this new breed of software that learns through observation. So some very clever people at Google and other places did a lot of work trying to sort of deconstruct how the human brain learns with this idea that, it's not programmed, it's sort of observational learning. And that is really, like teaching a computer to program a cat 10 years ago was impossible. And as simple as that seems for us, as a kid, even a baby can learn to recognize a cat relatively easily. One of the first big AI breakthroughs, I think, was when Google achieved human-level cat recognition, where a machine could look at cat photos and say, yep, that's a cat, that's a dog. Because that's really unstructured information that doesn't lend well to the old sort of manual or traditional software. And as we think about, AI, things like self-driving cars would be impossible without it. You can't possibly write a program that would describe every condition that you face as a driver on your way. Even just to write a program to drive your car from home to work, even though you know all the turns it has to make, there's so many variables that happen in between that really you need to feed tons and tons of data into these systems so that they can learn what human operators do under all these different conditions and how they behave. Which is why Google and Tesla have so many vehicles out on the street and are consuming so much data training these systems. But the good news is once you train, these AIs can learn and propagate that learning across every vehicle in existence. So they can all learn together, unlike humans that have to learn one at a time. So long-winded way of saying that in order to make AI work well for law enforcement, the data has to be somewhere it's accessible. Like in the cloud. If every agency has their own data, they're not going to have enough data to effectively train AI tools. Whereas in a centralized model, you can train the AI when you've got all the data in one place. So we're currently running, I just saw the last numbers, we've ingested over 14,000 terabytes of data, or 14 petabytes, into evidence.com. In fact, we just migrated from Amazon over to Microsoft. And it's our understanding, we were told by Microsoft, this was the largest cloud data migration in history.
Wow.
The amount of data we moved over. Now, the other thing I should clarify with you, it's not our data. It's our customers' data.
Right.
So we can build these AI tools, but because it is law enforcement data, we have to be very careful. So our customers have to actually opt in for their data to be used as training data. And so we've got a number of agencies who have opted in to do that with us. But I think it's important that our readers or your readers understand that we've aggregated the data so it can be used, but it's still up to those agencies to determine if they're going to participate. But the benefits from participating is they'll get the advantage of the tools that come out of that.
But the other factor of the cloud that plays so heavily into AI is that you have to have that processing power, and you can't put a single computer in a car, not with today's technology, that could learn anything. So you have to have chained computers in the cloud to actually do machine learning or AI at that level. Am I accurate on that?
You are generally accurate. There are tools that are now pushing AI to the edge. However, it only really works in a connected fashion, meaning like the new iPhone has a neural engine, it has an AI chip in it. However, for those things to work, they need to be part of a connected ecosystem. So it's like a distributed cloud. So you either need to have all the processors sitting together in one place near all the data, or you have to have these processors that they might be connected over the internet to each other and distributed. However, they all need to be connected in such a way that they're sharing what they're learning, et cetera. So I think in broad strokes, I think you're generally right. For an agency to think that they're going to deploy the amount of computational resources that are connected and coordinated into a neural network is completely unrealistic. You have to do it either in a cloud setting or at least in a cloud-connected setting where you've got a central orchestrator where you may have some local processing that happens, but it's a piece of a larger sort of organism. You can't just set up a laptop and be like, hey, we're going to do some machine learning and get much out of it.
Yeah, I remember when everybody was buying Cray computers to do these kinds of high-level machine learning type things, and that's not necessary anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, again, one of my favorite examples is just Google, because we're all so familiar with it, and none of us think about it. But when you type something in that little search bar, your search is running on a multi-billion-dollar supercomputer, meaning one of Google's data centers. And these things are enormous in scale and scope, and we as users are totally oblivious to it. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to think about it. Technology's done really well, right? That's what happens. It just melts into the background, and to us, it's this thing that we use that seems really easy, and we don't have to worry about all the hard stuff that went into building it.
Well, do you have any concerns about AI? I know there's a lot of crazy stuff out there. I mean, of all people, Elon Musk comes out and says AI is scary and he wants to have self-driving cars. It seems like a contradiction to me, but anyway. But do you have any concerns about using AI in law enforcement?
For sure. I think there are any really powerful technology could be abused. So when we first announced AI, that we had bought these AI teams. The immediate thing we saw in some of the public media were stories about how, Axon was now going to enable the Orwellian surveillance state where police would be watching you everywhere. And we do take those concerns pretty seriously for a variety of reasons. One of which is we live in the society that's policed by our customers. So we as a company internally spend a lot of time talking about what is the cyber society we live in and how do we do things we feel good about, that's building the world. We want to build the right world. We don't want to build the wrong world. And there are places where technology could be abused. And one of those examples is facial recognition. So what we immediately responded to all this is we are not doing facial recognition yet. Facial recognition, there are opportunities for that to be abused. Obviously, if law enforcement is going out and scanning everybody's face they ever interact with and checking it against have they been at a political protest or, what sort of nightclub do they go to or, prying into people's personal lives, I think everybody would agree that's like super creepy. However, similarly, if a police officer is interacting with someone who's just committed a crime and that person has no identification on them, I think most people agree it'd be reasonable to run facial ID on that person against all the official law enforcement databases to go, hey, does this guy have a record? But I think it's important that we, as a law enforcement community, including the technology vendors, we have to be aware of the public concerns and we have to take them into account. So what we've said with facial recognition is, hey, we're not doing it right now because we think these other areas we're applying our AI team are frankly more urgent, they're more valuable to our customers, and they're just simply not controversial. Nobody's against better redaction tools for, transcribing and writing police reports. But what we've also done is we have launched an AI ethics and advisory board. It will meet actually between now and IACP for the first time. I can't tell you exactly who's on it yet because we're in the final stages of firming up the list. But if you keep in touch with Steve to let him know, he'll send you the roster when we finalize it. But we're bringing in civil libertarian groups and others to be part of the conversation about, okay, guys, we know everybody's creeped out about facial recognition technology, but look, Apple just put it in every iPhone 10. This is going to be ubiquitous and everywhere. We cannot expect law enforcement to be using technology from 1950 when it's 2020. So how do we think about the guidelines of how this technology gets used? So before we roll out any facial recognition, we will have a series of principles and guidelines about how it should be used and best practices that we'll share with our customers, and we'll build the tools into our software so that agencies can monitor its usage just like, frankly, when we rolled out tasers, people were worried that one of the concerns we heard is, hey, what if police go around just tasing people? And so we built controls in where our tasers have data logs that record how they're being used. And we enabled the customer. We gave them power or these new capabilities to sort of police themselves and how it's being used. So with these new AI technologies, we're taking that same philosophy that if we're building something that has a potential for abuse, we need to at least consider that and build in oversight tools so that our customers can effectively manage those risks, right? So if I'm not sure exactly what the guidelines will be for facial recognition, but it could be something like this where perhaps we're logging anytime a facial recognition search is done, just to make sure, like an officer isn't using it in some way. We've all heard of the cases like where a cop sees a woman he's interested in and runs her license plate to get her address, right? Those sorts of things are pretty inappropriate. You can see facial recognition doing the same thing. So creating the right systems of accountability and then helping agencies publicize those as they launch them. Because a lot of this, like when an agency rolls out a taser for the first time, we have a whole set of guidelines for how they should interact with their local media to do pre-education so you don't get those god-awful stories about how police are just going to go around electrocuting people, but that you educate the stakeholders in the community. We think AI will require the same sort of effort.
Okay. Well, I think I've taken enough of your time, Rick. I appreciate it very much. If I have any additional questions...
Let me reverse it.
Go ahead.
We really appreciate it, and I really appreciate it personally. I mean, this is obviously... we love any time you take interest in what we're doing, you take the time to write about it and share about it. It's deeply appreciated here. So you'll get as much time as you need. If you get more questions, this is my cell phone. Feel free to call me back.
Okay.
I'd love to continue to work with you on this topic.
Yeah, it's a interesting topic. I think what was it? Arthur C. Clarke said that any technologies sufficiently advanced begins to look like magic. I think picking pictures out of a video with a computer is pretty much close to magic as far as I'm concerned. So, all right. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thanks, David. Have a great time. We'll see you at IACP.
Yeah. See you there. Bye.
Bye-bye.